Sharing is caring, especially when it's damage. This card does a lot of it. Welcome to another game of Clonehead Commander, and not just Commander, but Horde. And not just Horde, but Double Horde. Call this crazy, but we felt like a challenge. It's 4 of us going up against the deadly Zombie Horde and the Naya Monsters Horde. Chris is playing one of his 2 decks, Toshiro Umezawa. Ronnie is playing one of his 2 decks, Hizezan Tamar. Josh is playing his out-of-the-box Commander 2013 deck, the one with Marath. I am playing my new Mimeoplasm deck, which is quite Mimeoplasm-y. For those of you unfamiliar with Horde Commander, it's all of the human players versus it, or in this case, them. The team gets 2 turns at the start of the game, starts at 100 life, takes turns simultaneously, and mills the Horde 1 card for each point of damage dealt to it. The Hordes will also be taking their turns simultaneously. The Horde is mindless and makes all of their decisions randomly, such as whether or not to attack Planeswalkers, which is relevant for this game. Good old starting hands. Turn 1. We all just lay down lands, except for Ronnie, who casts a fancy turn 1 exploration and plays a second land. Turn 2. I cast Mesmeric Orb, which actually isn't going to make the Horde mill too many cards, I'm afraid. Ronnie misses his 4th land drop, but casts Explore, draws a card, and then makes it after all. Chris plays Urborg to my Yawgmoth, which is going to help me out a bit. Now, for the Horde's first turn. It's fairly innocuous, with the Zombie Horde unleashing Bad Moon, but no creatures, and the Naya Horde unleashing Enlisted Worm, which itself cascades into Molder Slug, which means bad things for my orb. The Hordes attack, and since we're going to lose 4 life anyway, Chris casts Snuff Out the easy way, paying 4 life and killing the slug. My orb will live another day, but we do take 5 damage from the Enlisted Worm. Turn 3. We start the turn by milling during our untap phase with the Mesmeric Orb. Ronnie ends up putting some good stuff in his yard over the course of the game. Not as much Chris and Josh. I cast a turn 3 Phyrexian Arena. I'm still not sure how I feel about that card in this deck. It's just a bit slow. We're all making our land drops. Ronnie misses his 6th land, but plays Corrosion Verge for his 5th. Not too much going on our side at the moment. Hopefully we'll get some more slow turns from the Hordes. The Naya Horde starts by milling 1 card from the orb since the Enlisted Worm untapped. The Zombie Horde unleashes 1 card, Undead Warchief, which isn't too threatening on its own. The Naya Horde unleashes 3 tokens, 2 of which are flyers, and then casts Tornado Elemental, killing its own flyers, which is pretty funny. Dodge a bullet there. The Horde still attacked for 18 damage, so I guess it wasn't that much of a dodge. Turn 4. We mill at the start of our turn with Chris saving the day with Damnation, wiping out all of the Horde's creatures. I then cast Oracle Moldiah and play Watered Grave off the top of my library for my 2nd land for the turn. Shared Animosity from Ronnie. He also leaves up mana for Corrosion Verge. Spellbreaker Behemoth from Josh. The counter ability isn't relevant, but a 5/5 blocker will be. The Horde starts their turns by not milling, but unleashing Collective Blessing, which is a blessing that it doesn't have any creatures at the moment. The Zombie Horde unleashes 6 zombie tokens and Diregraph Captain, which is not good. The Zombie Horde also has Bad Moon in play, so they get a total of +2. The zombies attack, and Josh blocks the captain with our only blocker, luckily killing it. We take 24 damage from the rest of the zombie tokens. Looks like Chris is going to need to clear the board again. Ronnie sacks his Verge at the end of the Horde's turn to find a plains and a forest and put them onto the battlefield. Turn 5. We all mill cards, more each turn even. We lose a life from my arena and I draw 2 cards. I play Misty Rainforest off the top of my library. Progenitor Mimic is on top of my library, which is a sweet card, but anything that I don't play off the top is going to get milled next turn with the orb anyway. I play Command Tower from hand and Chris casts Mutilate for 5, killing all the zombies. I then cast Palaka Worm, gaining us 7 life. Ronnie casts Elspeth and makes soldiers for blockers. Also, it can divert some of the Horde's creatures attacking us. Josh casts his commander, Marath. Horde's turn. Once again, milling no cards and no tokens from Naya Monsters, but what it does cast is just as bad with Crush of Worms, making 3 9/9 worms in this case. And of course, the Crush of Worms is going to get flashed back next turn. Zombie Horde unleashes 2 tokens and Cackling Fiend, which makes us each discard a card, which is pretty okay for me since I can put it into play with Mimeoplasm next turn. We roll attack destinations for each token since there is a Planeswalker on the field. 2 worms and 2 zombie tokens end up attacking Elspeth, the rest at us. Ronnie blocks each of the worms with his soldiers. I block one of the zombies attacking Elspeth with my worm. Josh also blocks a zombie and we end up taking 3 damage, but Elspeth none. Turn 6. Josh casts Warstorm Surge. Chris casts Caged Sun. Hopefully Naya Horde doesn't cast Bane of Progress. We talk strategy for a while and I end up casting my commander, which enters play as a copy of the Avenger of Zendikar in Ronnie's graveyard, with the power of Grave Titan from Chris's graveyard. Of Grave Titan. I have a sack land in play and 1 in hand, which will work pretty well with the Avenger's landfall ability. I get 7 plants. Ronnie casts his commander, his Zazon, which is going to work wonders with the shared animosity he already has. Ronnie debates using Elspeth's Wrath effect, but instead makes soldiers so he can block since I already played the Avenger. The worms do not have trample. As of right now anyway. I play the sack land in hand and water plants. On the Horde's untap steps, the zombie mills 1 and Naya mills 3. Naya Horde flashes back Crush of Worms, making 3 more worms. Zombie Horde casts 3 zombie tokens and Grave Pact, which sucks for us. Naya Horde casts no additional tokens and unleashes Terror Stomper, which is an 11/11 trampling dickbag. The Hordes go to attack with 2 zombie tokens and 3 worms attacking Elspeth. Everything else is attacking us. I sack both my lands, paying 2 life and making my plants 2 bigger. The trouble we run into here is that we can block all of the creatures fine, but anything we kill, we're going to lose more creatures due to Grave Pact. Ronnie is fine with losing all of his creatures, since you want his Azon to die the turn you cast it, but I was hoping on dealing some damage next turn with my guys. We initially tried to work around the Grave Pact, strategically blocking, but it was just too cumbersome, so I just said, okay, I'll just block and kill everything I can. We know we want to kill all the zombies because they're going to be the only thing that would survive after an Elspeth Wrath, so I make sure that we kill those. We end up not taking any damage because of my blockers, and next turn we'll just wipe the board with Elspeth. I do draw a card when my Palaka Worm dies. Turn 7. We once again start our turn by milling all the cards. One of the cards Ronnie mills is Anger, which is pretty nice, since he has a mountain. We lose another life from Phyrexian Arena. Chris also casts Toshiro Umezawa. Josh starts to play his commander, but is then reminded to wait until after Ronnie clears the board with a negative Elspeth. Elspeth wraths the board, killing all of the rest of the Horde's creatures. Josh then lands Marath with 5 counters on it, and then deals the Zombie Horde 5 damage with Warstorm Surge. Chris casts Chainer Dementia Master, which is one of my all-time favorite cards. Just look how good it is. Ronnie then attacks the Zombie Horde since it has Rise of the Dark Realms in it for 64 damage. They got so boosted from the shared animosity. I cast Genesis and Animate Dead, enchanting my Terracodon. When it enters, I blow up 3 of the Horde's enchantments. They get 3 elephants. On the Horde's turn, Zombie Horde flashes back Army of the Damned, making 13 zombie tokens. It then unleashes 1 token and casts a second Army of the Damned for a turn, giving it a total of 26 tapped zombie tokens. Naya Horde unleashes 3 tokens and Stalking Vengeance, which is going to be a problem. We'll have no problem killing the creatures, but we are going to incur a wealth of damage from the Stalking Vengeance. Luckily, Chris has Chainer and chains Soar of Temptation from my yard into play, gaining control of Naya's Stalking Vengeance before attacks, so we can use it to block. Chris pays 3 life to do so. For the attack phase, one of the beasts is attacking Elspeth, and the lone zombie token is also attacking Elspeth. Everything else is coming at us. We block all the attackers, and Chris deals the Zombie Horde 7 damage when Sower and Stalking Vengeance die. At end of turn, now that stuff has died, Chris can flashback instance in his yard using Toshiro. Chris adds mana with Dark Ritual and the Threshold Dark Ritual, making 7 mana, and chains Palaka Worm and Prime Speaker Zagana from my yard into play on his side. We net a total of 1 life gain after all is said and done, and Chris draws 8 cards from Zagana. Turn 8, last turn of the game. We mill, and I am running low on cards in my library. Mesmeric Orb works during the untap step, so one of the cards Ronnie mills is Genesis, which means he is going to be able to return something to his hand on his upkeep. He returns Gisela to hand, which has the potential of finishing off the Horde this turn. Ronnie makes soldiers with Elspeth and then attacks the Hordes for over 120 damage. The Naya Horde puts Wolfspine Worm into its graveyard, which is going to make the Horde survive another turn, but luckily Chris chains it into play on his side, stopping it from shuffling back into the Horde's library, and we pay 3 life to do so. Josh then casts Crater Hellion to get rid of the Horde's creatures it currently has in play. And that does it for the Hordes. Things looked a little shady there at the start, but we ended up pulling through. The Horde's lack of being able to deal with Ronnie's shared animosity was what dealt it the most damage. The Mesmeric Orb did not mill as many of the Horde's cards as we originally thought it was going to. We ended up having to wrath so often that the Horde didn't have very many permanents to untap each turn. The Mesmeric Orb did do well for both Chris and I, as we were able to put huge creatures into play as a result. Although, too many more turns with the Orb probably would have killed us, especially me. No single card from either of the Hordes was too impactful, other than maybe Grave Pact. We were mostly worried about the Rise of the Dark Realms from Zombie Horde. That's why we kept going after it so much, because we put so many cards into our graveyard. If it had resolved a Rise of the Dark Realms, we probably would have lost. Okay, that's it for now. We just keep beating the Horde every time, it seems. Perhaps next time we will either try some tougher rules, or maybe even a third Horde. I know you guys have a lot of ideas, and unfortunately we won't be able to do most of them. feel free to keep submitting ideas, and we will try to possibly do one more in the coming months, but no promises. Until then, remember to always clone the ones you love. All right.